It's in the scriptures and a time of devotion here today. In our devotional reading plan, the verses that I picked out today that were meaningful to me were from Romans 4, verses 7 to 8. It said, "Blessed are those whose lawless acts are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Blessed is the person the Lord will never charge with sin." Let me read that one more time to you. Just get this in your mind here. Blessed are those whose lawless acts are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Blessed is the person the Lord will never charge with sin. Now, Paul's writing in this chapter in Romans 4 about God's grace that's available to us through faith in Jesus Christ. Right? He's talking throughout here about how sinful we are as people, that all of us have fallen short of the glory of God, and how incredible it is. How unbelievable it is in a lot of ways that we can actually be forgiven, that we can experience forgiveness. I think about it this way. In my home, occasionally, once in a very rare while, I'll do something kind of silly. Okay, sometimes I'll just do something that's outright dumb. I'll be harsh with Lindsay, or I'll be harsh with my kids. Sometimes I do something to offend them. I say something that's wrong, or something, it's not something that I've actually actively done, but something that I've not done. Right? Maybe I've been lazy and haven't helped in a place where I probably should have. I am far from perfect. Now, what if they stored up every fault from everything that I did and held all that stuff over my head? What if they defined me by my shortcomings rather than by my potential? What if they treated me as I deserve to be treated when I'm acting like a fool? It would be terrible. But the thing is, we have a rhythm in our house where when I do something bad, I will ask for forgiveness, and they'll forgive. I'll say, "Hey, will you forgive me? That was wrong." And they'll say, "I forgive you." And we experience a grace and a peace. And I think God is like this in some ways. On the one hand, He upholds high standards. Right? He cares about the foolish things that we do. He cares about when we get out of line and when we don't follow through on things that He's called us to do. On the other hand, God is slow to anger, and He's abounding in love. He's forgiving everyone who asks for it by faith. Now, here's the thing that I think was cool. Paul was affirming this when he wrote it in the book of Romans in about 55 AD. But he was actually quoting scripture from the Old Testament. That scripture was written by King David about 1100 years before Paul copied it down. And it's still relevant today to us, 2,000 years after Paul wrote it. That's about a 3,000-year span of relevance that these verses have been speaking into people's lives like yours and mine. Now, here's the thing. Do you want to know how to live the blessed life? It's saying live like you're forgiven. Live like someone who's been forgiven. Like someone who's guilty, who's deserving of punishment, but someone who will not pay that price. Now, what does it mean to be blessed? Right, I think people have all kinds of ideas about what it means to live blessed or to be blessed. Right? This isn't talking about a pouring on of wealth or a pouring on of possession. It's not talking about an absence of hardship and struggle, that all of a sudden the easy button gets hit and everything's rainbows and unicorns, right? What to be blessed means is to literally to be made holy, to be set apart. Right, the Greek word that's used in the New Testament was actually used as well in pagan Greek literature to describe a state of happiness and well-being, just like the gods enjoy. Right, what this word is talking about, what this idea of being blessed is talking about, is a joy that supersedes situation, a peace that transcends understanding. It's talking about a hope that's rooted in something that's not of this world, and so it's unable to be shaken by this world. Difficulties may or they may not fade in your situation, but blessing is assured. Again, not because of your situation, but because of your position in relationship with Jesus Christ. You can be assured of blessing when you are living as one who's forgiven. Now, here's an application for you today. Your application here is to live like you're blessed. to live like one who's been forgiven, who's experienced grace and forgiveness from God, who is guilty and would otherwise be punishable, but who's experienced grace. So live as one who's grateful. Live as one who's humble. Live as one who's choosing to make the most out of every moment, because you know that no moment is to be taken for granted. Live as one who's experienced and is experiencing grace and forgiveness on an ongoing way. And let me pray for you along those lines here today. Lord, I pray that you would help me to be grateful in all circumstances. Help us to be grateful in all things we experience, to find those reasons to give thanks. Lord, help us to be humble, not to think more of ourselves or less of ourselves than is accurate, but to see ourselves accurately through your lenses. And Lord, help us to realize and live in forgiveness, to live in a freedom that grace offers, and to not take any moment for granted, but instead to live every moment out for the sake of the gospel, and to live out our relationship with you with strength, with power, with love, and with faith. Lord, help us to be courageous and bold and strong today. And would you bless us, Lord, not just in our situation, but Lord, help us to experience the blessing that can only come from you through a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I ask that in his name.